Welcome to the week 4 go-to session. Yes, week 4. We are in the home stretch, people. Thanks for hanging in there strong. My first question to all of you is because you handed in your first draft on Sunday, and I have to admit I haven't gotten too deeply into them. How did the first draft go? Good, pretty good, frustrating. Um, are there any issues that you particularly struggled with or that you would like for me to go over? I'm going to spend the time at the beginning. I have slides, like prepared things that I need to go through, but I am going to spend some time talking about images because briefly talked about them last week, but I'd like to spend more time on them. Maylee says very uncertain. Okay, why are you very uncertain? I have to say I graded all the emotional storytelling submissions last week, and I thought all of them, almost all of them, were pretty snazzy. In some cases, and it wasn't a requirement. Remember, you had a video option, you had an audio option. Um, right? Weren't those the two options? Yeah. And some people put together video options that were pretty darn close to what they need to do for their final presentation. And in those cases, I even told them, like, okay, you're already pretty much doing what you need to do. That this is using important visuals, not so much text, and combining it with planned and scripted voiceover. Like, that's what you're doing for the final presentation. Um, okay, Maylee says that it was a rough draft and it felt like one. Yeah, listen, you're going to get detailed feedback from me. Last week, the hardest thing was getting through everybody's planning documents because that takes time and it takes time to give everybody detailed feedback. Obviously, you'll be getting detailed feedback on your first draft that you submitted. Tomorrow is going to be a big day for me, especially in the afternoon and evening. I do not begin my days until 2 p.m. I'm a very, very late starter. So tomorrow's gonna be a big day. Technically, I have until Thursday at 5 p.m. to grade all of the first drafts, but I hope to make a serious, serious dent tomorrow, Wednesday. Okay, because what you see here on screen is here we are, week 4. So we have 2 activities this week, and the big one is simply receiving feedback that I'm going to give you and using it to prepare your finished presentation. Right, your presentation that is in the best form that you could get it. Let's see. Jeffrey says he was having issues with fewer words on the slides. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Why don't we get into that? Because I received a message. I think he's here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was from Nino. Um, Frustration about finding images. Like, I'm supposed to use allowable images, but I'm struggling to do so. Um, I think I might have mentioned this last week, but it's very easy just to go anywhere online and grab whatever you want, because if you right click on just about any image, you'll be able to save it to your desktop. um, and I'm trying to prepare students for, yeah, like acting ethically, right? That you can't really do that in the real world. I mean, yes, you can, in the sense that, will you get caught if you're using, let's say, a copyrighted image and you're sending it out through Facebook, or no, or if you do it for a school project, yeah, probably not. Almost certainly not. But it's about establishing good habits, because once you join, I mean, think about all the people get in trouble out in the real world because they might be a politician, they might be an artist or a celebrity, and it turns out they've stolen a line in a speech or in something they've written that turns out to be not their words. It was taken from someone else, right? Essentially claims of plagiarism. I know not everybody here is studying things like graphic design, but the graphic design people, the students, you certainly won't be able to do that, right? But you'll be surprised how many of you may be creating multimedia projects. I mean, if you're in music production, recording arts, you may end up creating a short video, promotion video or something. I mean, yeah, if you become big and famous, other people will do that for you. But early on, you may be creating that yourself. I'm an educator. Never did I think I'd have to create a welcome video. Never did I think I'd have to learn iMovie and create a 3-minute video for students, right? So we all know with social media, the internet, these things are becoming all the more common, and it's just a kind of ethical, right thing to do, to use images that you're allowed to use and give credit to them. It seems like it is acting ethically to take just whatever, as long as you give credit to it. but yeah, that's not quite right. So Dustin says I incorporated a game trailer in my iMovie. Yeah, so that might be like iffy, right? Like, I mean, I'd have to see it. I know gaming can sometimes be more open. Think of all the YouTube videos where people are doing walkthroughs of games and things like that. Gaming companies don't care because it's essentially promotion for the game. And plus, you're playing through the game. It's not really a copyright violation because you're playing in real time. That experience is its own experience. Yeah, you're showing content from a consumer product, but the gaming industry is perfectly fine with that, right? YouTube would YouTube would not exist if you couldn't have music, video game walkthroughs, and cat videos. You take those three things away, and YouTube falls apart. Borderlands. I played the first Borderlands game. No, actually, no. I played the second one, Borderlands 2. A lot of fun. So if you're unsure about copyright things, you can always send me a message to be sure. But okay, let me show how it's not that difficult. So last week I said it's as simple as just typing the word Creative Commons into Google. For example, Flickr has a whole Creative Commons section. And on the main page here, it even has a link also to creativecommons.org. And when you click on that, it gets taken you to this site. Actually, it takes you to this site. Okay. Creative Commons. And look, it's encouraging you already to search for images. And you can just search for what you wish, click modify or adapt, meaning you're looking for things that you can change. Here it's for if you're going to use it for commercial purposes, and you can do a search, right? So someone shout out a keyword, like what something that relates to your career field. Made a good Pixby. Yeah, I'm going to talk about a tool that I forgot to mention, and it's in one of the examples in your instruction sheet because this week's instruction sheet for the final presentation, or no, excuse me, it's the giving feedback assignment. It has links to 3 student presentations. So you can see 3 examples of what past students have created. And one of them uses a really cool app called Powtoon. I actually have it at the ready here, which I'm going to show a little bit later. But let me get back to this idea of images, okay? So this is model creation, polygons. Oh, wow. I don't know if that's going to come up very good. I assume you're talking about like a video game design, like 3D modeling, the use of polygons in video games. Yeah, I don't know what that's going to come up with. In general, the more specific a term is, the more difficult it's going to be to find something, right? So this is resulting in, I mean, here's something related to video game design. As you probably learned, it's also a matter of choosing the right image. Like images work best, I think, when they're um, landscape. So they're more like laid out like this. Width is longer than length because that's just a natural shape for a slide. But you have to find the right image because the right image will kind of already be set up for you to add wording. Again, we're not aiming for word heavy presentations. In fact, this class is about the exact opposite, which is why I recommend, for example, not using PowerPoint's generic templates because those just encourage you to start adding words, right? Every slide encourages you to put a title up top. It encourages you to start entering text or create bullet lists. And this class is sort of arguing the opposite, right? We're pushing for more dynamic presentations. Yes, PowerPoint's basic functions are fine for, like, let's say an office setting where you're in a department meeting and basic slides with words and bullet lists, charts are perfectly allowable. But if you're actually trying to create a more dynamic presentation, right, like the one we're asking you to create for this class, or think about, again, the welcome video I created, things that kind of work more like almost like a short video, even if you're using presentation software, still, when you put it in slideshow mode and you sit back and watch it, it kind of rolls by more like a short video, right? Images change to match what you're saying in your voiceover. Um, so yeah, it's not about that you're going to be putting a lot of text, but if you are going to put some text, It's important to find the right image. So obviously this isn't working very well. I doubt Polygon is going to. Okay, I mean, maybe like this would work if it weren't taking up so much space. Um, as I told, I think it was Nino in my response to him. It takes time. Like you have to scroll, you have to play around with keywords, you have to do a whole bunch of things in order to find an image that works. But what I have saved to my desktop are two images that will work as slides. So I'm going to use PowerPoint, not because I'm encouraging people to use PowerPoint, just because I think it's easiest to show how this works. And I always say just skip the generic templates and choose a blank presentation. Once you're in, you can even go to layout and choose blank. Okay. And then once you found your image, just drag it in. So this was an image I found last week. Okay. And for example, you can stretch it out to fit the entire slide. Did I go too far? There we go. Okay. And this image is kind of like perfect because it's following that rule of thirds things I talked about in week 2, in which this third is mostly filled with the woman's figure. The second third is kind of semi-filled, and the final third is blank, which makes it really, really attractive because you can put words in there, right? Um, so when it comes to choosing a font, for presentations, you should use a sans serif font. Sans is a French word that just means without. So you want a font without serifs. If you're wondering, well, what is serifs? Serifs are little feet, okay? Little feet at the bottom of letters. They work great for like essays or papers that you're writing. They don't work very well in presentations. In presentations, you want fonts that don't have those little feet. For example, Times New Roman is great for essays, but it's not great for presentations. So you can use the text box, and you can just begin by putting in whatever you plan to type. So I'll put the words oops, important thing here too. Since this is a black background, yeah, I need to pick a lighter color. So I'll go with white. So let's say performance, the the power of song. Okay, right? Now we can already tell a couple things. This is too small. Now the good news is it's already in a sans serif font, right? There aren't little feet. So we can make this bigger. Oops. So let's try 36. That also feels like it could still be larger. We could play around with things like, does it all have to be on one line? And you can also force it down by squeezing it closed, right? Highlighting everything and centering it. I could probably even just get rid of that colon and have it more like that. Okay. So we're getting closer. Oops, I misspelled performance. Okay, so we're getting closer. Could probably still go a bit larger. And you could play around. Like, for example, you can make this the larger one. Let's say we'll make that like 54. Wow, that's really large. Okay. And have that one smaller, so it draws your eye more here to the bigger one. And then this one, because it's in a smaller font, reads as like the subtitle. Okay. Already, even though it may not be like the fanciest thing possible, we've got a basic slide, right? As I said, I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but I don't expect you guys to be graphic artists. Yeah, some of you have some crazy skills and can make some really, really gorgeous slides. And some of you are like me and can just create competent slides. Competent is fine. Again, this is not a graphic design class. This is a class that's more about communicating through visuals. Um, I have a confession. I think I'm a fairly easy grader. I know students will scream out loud and say, no, you're not. But I think I am, in the sense that for final presentations, I really just want to see, can you do something like this, right? So you're not opening up, let's see, here, we'll insert new slide. Let's choose a template form. like this, right? So I don't want to see things like this. Uh, education, uh, list of my skills. And then here you say music classes taken. And then here you start right? I mean, in other words, if you're starting to build a generic PowerPoint presentation, that's not what I want to see. Or even worse is I've had sometimes students just open up a document and literally type out their script. Like I'm reading their entire script on the slides. No, no, no. Um, so yeah, here, let me just get rid of this slide entirely. Where is, actually, I can think I could just hit the delete button. Delete. Oh, there it is, delete slide. Okay, good, right? So if you can create something like this, yeah, you're golden. Because the goal here is to use mostly visuals with limited text that just act as kind of visual anchors, right? And I think most of you are getting the hang of this, because those of you who chose the video option for the emotional storytelling, a lot of you are already doing this. You're already getting the gist of, okay, it's a matter of finding the right image that matches what I'm saying, and that throughout my voiceover, the image is changed to match what I'm saying, right? Are we all on board with, like, that's the gist of what we're aiming for? Hopefully I'll see a lot of yeses in the, okay, awesome. Like, that's what I want to see. And in terms of the voiceover, yeah, I expect it to be scripted. I expect it to be professional and planned, so you're not just winging it. If you can do that, really, I'm pretty generous grade-wise, because I can tell myself that, yes, this person has the basics down. This person knows how to create a presentation that is not a generic presentation. Okay, so here, I'll insert a new slide. I'll just show like one more example. And here I'm going to show like how you should be giving credit. Okay, so this is something I found through creativecommons.org. Right, so this is clearly a professional level image. I don't think it's the greatest image. I mean, it's an awesome image quality wise. It's not a great image for a slide though, because it doesn't really create much room for wording. But okay, sometimes students don't pick the perfect slides, and that's fine too. Um, we should be consistent. So if we're using here it's I never know how to say this word. Calibri. um, yeah, there should be consistency. So you're not using one font for one slide, a completely different font for another slide. Be careful too about using flamboyant slides. So if you go, flamboyant fonts. So for example, yeah, like this might look cool to the eye, but like, yeah, I know the word's broken up, but is that really the best font? Be careful, okay? Usually less flamboyant fonts. You can definitely play around. Yeah, Greg asks, who are we giving credits to? I'm going to show that in just a second. Okay. Um, Helvetica works well because it's a sans serif font. I can easily just fix that by dragging this. And anytime this little, like, can you see it? It's like a 4-arrow compass that tells you can move the thing around, right? So just use your eyeballs to find where it should go. Okay, so that's Helvetica. So yeah, on the next slides, we should stick with Helvetica. So we'll add text, and let's say we are going to call this one, whoops. So we'll choose a light colored font. Light colored against dark backgrounds, dark against light backgrounds. So we'll call this fine tuning. I don't know what to call it as a subtitle. Career, oops. I should follow the same thing I was doing on the last slide. Career skills. I don't know. Who cares about what the wording is? Okay. Now here, if I follow the exact same size I used in the last slide, so this is Helvetica 54 and this is Helvetica 36. We don't have room to do that. Okay. because if I make this first line 54, well, actually that works. I was worried it would bump into the image, but it doesn't. And we'll center it just like we did in the last one, and then we'll move it to a spot that works well. Yeah, because this image doesn't work so well, like it doesn't really allow that much space, but still, it's fine. Okay, you're still following the general principles, and so I encourage people to just create your own slides. Like it's this simple. Like find an image that works, add text that helps frame what it is you're speaking about out loud, then move on to the next slide, and so on. By the way, the part of what I was able to do when creating presentations in iMovie is that I would just save the individual slides. Actually, I think it's up here. So I'd go to File, Export, and then you have the option to save it as like a JPEG. And then I would drag the JPEG, which is just literally like a photo, an image of just a slide, and then drag it into the other program, because I would use PowerPoint essentially to add text to the image, and then drag it into another program. So that's a trick too. You can use PowerPoint as the essential building blocks and then drag the slides into another program if you like using another program. I'm trying to catch up on the people are talking about, I guess, different programs you can use. Okay, yeah, some people are mentioning iMovie. I mean, choose an app that you're comfortable with. I'm fine with like PowerPoint. You have the ability to add audio slide by slide, or I think James is giving some people advice on how to add audio so that when you put it in slideshow mode, it narrates throughout from slide to slide. So, yeah, I mean, PowerPoint is fine. But those who want to try out other tools, like movie making tools like iMovie, um, what other apps are people using? Because I've never tried out Adobe Spark or Google Slides. Some people made some really slick emotional storytelling pieces, and I wasn't sure like what software they were using. But yeah, choose something that works well for you. But you don't get graded down if, for example, I have to go slide by slide, click on the audio button for that slide, and hear the voiceover that goes with it. Like, yeah, nobody gets penalized because they're not maybe as strong with tech issues and software as other people. It's really, are you following the big picture issues in this class? Okay. Now, Greg sent me a private message about how do we give attribution. So here's what creativecommons.org suggests. Okay. So for this image here, they recommend, image attribution. And if you actually have a web page, yeah, you can put in this HTML. But for you guys, you can really just do this. Okay, here's the full attribution. The name of the image, Boca Guitar. The person who made it, Cog Dog Blog. Yeah, lots of times it's like a person's screen name. So if it says Hot Mama 97, like that's the author. And it tells where it came from, Creative Commons, 2.0. And as long as you do something like this, like if you're using PowerPoint, you could just go to the notes section, put it in. Technically, because you're modifying the image, you should give an explanation like added text or added text for school presentation, because Creative Commons explains what level the image is. Like this image here of a like full person, it explains you are free to share. Okay, just share. Or adapt, so you can remix, transform, build upon the material for any purpose. However, you have to give attribution, okay, under the following terms. You must give appropriate credit, provide a link to the license, and indicate if changes were made. And they give an example. So this is why I said, like, if I click on this thing, indicate if changes were made. And then if you click on marking guide, it shows an example of what that looks like. And I was just following the example. And for some reason, I'm not getting there. Marking guide. There we go. Like here's a good attribution for material you modified slightly. Okay. So Creative Commons 10th birthday celebration San Francisco. That's the name of this image. By, here's the author's name, used under. In other words, just the stuff that I copied for this image down here. Um, and then an explanation. So here the person has desaturated the image. Okay. So they played around with how the image looks overall. So if you can do that, that's fine. I mean, ideally, you should be crediting the name of the image, who it was created by, and some people will give me a URL. That's fine if the URL can take me directly to that image. Sometimes it won't. The important thing is to give as much information as you can. Okay. But yeah, if you're using Creative Commons images, you should be good. Okay, what I don't want to see is like what I said, I think in week 2 or week 3, that you just Google something like Taylor Swift and then you just grab whatever images you like, whether you know they're allowable or not, even if you give credit, because you may not have permission to use it. And I do think if you search long enough, and it can be a pain, I know, you have to vary your search terms, because when I put in 3D modeling, it was coming up with not very useful stuff. Or sometimes images are quite attractive, but they don't really work well as slides because there's not room to add even a little bit of text. So yeah, you do have to search a bit, but eventually I think you can find images. Right, people? Are people having like huge issues finding images, or are most people doing okay? Do I need to refresh people's memories on where you can get free music from Westar if you need background music? Programs will sometimes have this built in. I seem to remember iMovie has some basic tracks that are built in. Okay, Dustin says yes. So if you go to Full Sail 1, okay, so this is the main page, and you click on Learn, then you go to the library. It used to be much easier to get to this section under the old system, but Full Sail 1 hides it a little bit. So now we're in the library, but the databases, there should be like a direct link right here that says databases, but no, you have to go to the About tab. And what's frustrating is I don't think anybody really would think to click on the About tab, because you just assume it's just some basic information about this. Anyway, once you go to the About tab, then you can go to the Research Databases. Okay, Maylee, she says she had a hard time finding most images. Do you feel a bit more confident now after my little demo? I mean, yeah, it takes time. Okay, you're not going to just find a cache of perfect images that, oh, I'm overwhelmed. Which one should I choose? No, you have to search for one that works well for what you're saying and is works well enough as like a slide, quote unquote slide. Okay. If we scroll down all the way to the W's, Westar Music. Okay, it's a database of lots of music you can use. Okay, and as a Full Sail student, you can download anything for free. You should be choosing something that works well as background music. Okay, so something soft, something light, something that does not interfere with your voice. Um, Programs that do have some basic music tracks built in, those are sometimes ideal because they've been purposely selected to work with presentations. So again, I think iMovie has some basic like music tracks, like light music tracks. Um, Dustin says it's hard finding the rule of 3 images I need. I agree. I agree. Even like here, okay, like this image is not ideal, and like lots of these images are not, because yeah, too many people create things that are like the image is taking up the entire center, and what we kind of want is, again, yeah, those images that are kind of following the rule of thirds. Um, so like, yeah, these images don't leave much room, but maybe they could be adapted somehow, right? I mean, do what you can, okay? And try different sites. So if you're striking out at creativecommons.org, go to Flickr. So what happens here if I type in Polygon? Okay, so the same kind of thing, you'll have to do some searching to figure out, find something that works. And there are ways like, let me go back here. I could, for example, take this up here, drag it out so it fits the entire top. I mean, I don't really like this option because it's making it almost look like a standard PowerPoint. um, and the words here, the ending of skills, I think bleeds a little bit into this yellow, but you could do something like that. Again, putting things centered up top is making it look a little bit more like a standard PowerPoint presentation, but it's still fine because, again, it's mostly visual with limited wording. And it's not that you can never use wording or you can never create lists or you can never um, like if you have a quotation, a short quotation that briefly appears on the screen all by itself, like you can do things like that. What I don't want is people just automatically going into throwing text on slides, right? I should be looking at something that doesn't look like a generic presentation. Okay. Some people are saying they had problems with PowerPoint. Uh, Greg says, what's wrong with using? There's nothing wrong with PowerPoint, Greg, but my advice is make PowerPoint do what you need to do to create the kind of presentations for this class. Okay. Because what too many people do is they say new presentation and, oh, I wanted the list of templates to come up. Design, right? Okay. So they choose a generic template and then they just start filling in the blanks, right? My presentation. I can't see what I'm typing because the control panel for go-to is in the way. By Joe. Oh, my J doesn't work. Tom Smith, right? And then you say insert slide, and then you just keep filling things in, right? So my education, and then you literally start saying I graduated, right? And it's just slide after slide after slide. That's all text and all lists. It looks like, yeah, again, it's clear that you've just opened up PowerPoint. And I suggest doing the opposite. How do you do the voiceover? Okay, so I'm not an expert in PowerPoint. James seems really familiar with this, so you can reach out to him. But James, help me out here. Where do I go for audio? Go to slideshow. Okay. And then record slideshow. Okay. If I click this, does it immediately start recording? Okay, James is saying insert. Okay, so if I click on record slideshow, would you like to access the microphone? If I click OK, then does it start recording? Because I don't really want to say start recording. Insert audio. Okay, let me see if I can get out of this. And do you want to? No, I don't want to save it. Nuts. Okay, so here, let me get back to the home. Okay, so what was it? Some people are saying insert audio. Insert. I can't. You can't see, but the go-to control panel literally blocks my view sometimes. So in audio, and then here's the thing. For those of you who don't know how to do this, there's got to be a wealth of material online, right? There have to be YouTube videos that show how to do this. There have to be basic things. It's because I honestly have never used audio in PowerPoint. Again, my preferred thing is I like iMovie because I just like it. So I'll use PowerPoint to create the slides, but then I don't use it for anything more than that. So anyway, to the people who are asking about audio, can I be the mean instructor and say you'll figure it out? Students do. Um, but yeah, it looks like it has something to do with slideshow, record audio. Okay, or someone was saying insert audio. James is saying, can I put your number in there? Sure, if you're comfortable doing so. But yeah, I guarantee there are YouTube videos that show this. Like I'm a little bit hesitant because I don't know because I've never used PowerPoint for this thing, and B, I'm not sure how people get it to play over the entire presentation. Like I think I have a rudimentary knowledge of how you're recording audio slide to slide, or is it a matter that you're always recording slide to slide, but they just play naturally as it moves slide to slide over the entire presentation? So there, James gave his phone number. So if you want to give him a text, it sounds like he'll go above and beyond by maybe giving you some tips. Uh, Sean says he did a live recording of the voice and then put that over the slideshow. So did you go to insert audio, Sean, and then from file? And even then, I would still have questions like, how do you get it to match the images? Is there a way to, there's got to be a way to change the duration of the slide? Oh, okay. Sean says no, he went to the slideshow where he was before. Um, yeah, if you play around with it, you'll figure it out. So clearly, if you go to record slideshow, um, you can start recording, right? I'm a little bit confused on when do I stop? Or do I just keep talking and change the slides as I keep speaking? But that'll be pretty hard to do if I'm working from a script. I don't really want to be looking at the screen. Also, I don't want to record things all in one take. I'd rather record it in chunks, because if you have to read a 3-minute script out loud, changing the slides, yeah, you can do it, but probably you're going to stumble at a certain point. And technically, this is recording me. No, I don't want to save this. Okay, so yeah, I mean, again, this isn't a class in it's not a class in graphic design. It's not a class in teaching you PowerPoints. Students are able to figure this out. I know that sounds terrible. I'm the teacher, but students just do. Just as I learned how to use iMovie and learned how to use the recording equipment in there, people figure out how to do PowerPoint's audio function. And there's lots of information that you can find online. Okay, so let me move on because I actually spent so much time on this. Do we get the attribution thing? So here, go to home. Um, View normal. There we go. Okay. Okay. Sean says he changed the slides as he talked, but went back and you can edit each slide audio. Okay. So you can go back and repair what you've recorded. But you get the gist. Like this basic thing here, that will work as an attribution. Those of you who are not using PowerPoints, you don't have a notes area to provide the credit. You can have a credit screen at the end. So if you're using more like video style software, you just have a part at the end that lists the images. This is fine for me, by the way. Okay, something that shows the title, who created it, where you got it, and if you want to, you can explain the modification. Technically, you're supposed to do that, but um, and if you can give me, if you want to give a URL that takes me directly there, that can work in addition. But yeah, give credit. Okay, so I'm gonna just turn this off because I don't want to use PowerPoint anymore. No, I don't want to save this. Okay. So let me get to the gist of what we need to cover in this lecture. So where's my... Dustin says iMovie has animations insert that makes the credits roll like an actual... Yeah, iMovie has a lot of fun little things you can add to it. Like I said, I don't keep mentioning my welcome video because I think it's a work of art. It's just that even I arrived here full sail, just a Luddite or close to it, no familiarity with any of this stuff. And iMovie, yeah, it has a lot of cool functions. Okay, so welcome to week 4. Yes, you've made it. We're in the final stretch. Week 4 isn't terribly complicated. You have 2 gradable assignments. We're going to talk about the first one first, which is this guy here. Okay, presentation feedback, where you're going to practice giving feedback. In the past, this was to one another. So people had to not only create a first draft, but they had to put it on a discussion board, and then everybody would give each other feedback on people's presentations. We have since shifted this to, you will practice giving feedback to a past presentation. Okay. So this is the 4.3 assignment, which I think is worth 10% of your overall grade. And yeah, it's kind of practice getting feedback. In other classes, you will give direct feedback to classmates. For example, when you get to English class, there's typically a peer feedback assignment where you will actually look at your classmates' work and give them direct feedback. Here it's a little bit simpler than that. So this is the instructions, okay? This is the actual PDF of the instructions. Um, there's a quote about giving feedback, but here's the gist of it, okay? So you have links to 3 presentations. Yeah, this would have been valuable sooner because if you could have looked at some examples, you would have had a better idea what to put in your planning documents. But you do have 3 student presentations to look at. And your job is to choose one. Okay, so you can watch all 3 and choose the one that you feel like responding to. You can choose the first one, watch that, and decide to respond to that. But the instructions say to watch 3 final presentations in these links and to essentially think about the presentation and then analyze it. And you have some thought questions to consider. Okay, so like what specifically did you like about the presentation? Be specific and explain. Okay, don't just say that I thought it was really cool, or I thought it was awesome. What specifically did you like about the presentation? What part of the presentation was difficult to follow? Based on what you've learned so far this month, what advice do you have for the presenter for their final submission? Okay, so these are all, I have to admit, these are all fairly polished presentations, but they all could use some improvement. So can you spot how they could be improved? Okay, so what techniques, skills, qualities from the course materials did this presentation exemplify? So in what ways is it following the sort of core concepts we've been talking about all month? Which of the 3 pillars does this presentation appeal to? Or which of the 3 pillars does this presentation appeal to? Ethos, to pathos, to logos? I'll explain that in a minute. You don't literally have to answer every single one of these questions. It's not like a Q&A. You'll probably be covering most of them, but they're kind of thought questions because on the next page of the instruction sheet, and you have this, okay? So under the activity, there's a PDF that contains all 3 pages of these instructions. Almost like every other assignment you've done this month, you will then create a document that contains your analysis. So it's kind of similar to the week 1 assignment where there's a TED Talk analysis. So yeah, you're given some thought questions and you're probably going to be answering just about all of them. But essentially you create a document, whatever you think that means. Okay, you can include visual elements, but they're not required. So if you want to, you can just open up a Microsoft Word document and use those thought questions from the previous page. You know, what's working well, what could be improved, in what ways is it following the core concepts of this course, to create, for example, 3 paragraphs or something, right? 3 short paragraphs, 3 medium paragraphs. And again, it tells you to consider those questions on the previous page. Okay. So there's an additional step. Provide feedback for the content of the presentation, explaining what you think worked well and what did not. Again, you can read through all this on your own, but the suggestion should be as detailed and specific as possible. There's a third step. After your analysis is completed, so maybe it takes you 2 paragraphs, maybe it takes you 3 paragraphs, but once you've completed your full analysis, using those thought questions on the previous page, add a final paragraph reflecting upon your thoughts about feedback. How might this process inform your own critique and feedback process about your own work? So in other words, after you've taken the time to closely look at one of these student presentations, in what way does it help you with your own presentation, right? Hopefully you've learned something from it, either something you could also implement in your own presentation or something you should avoid, right? Like, oh, wow, I didn't care much for that. Or for 5 seconds, there was just a blank screen and I don't want to do that in my presentation. Okay. And then once you submit your document, you'll just drag it into the assignment area and you're done. I'd say most people just open up a Microsoft Word document and write out their analysis, right? So essentially 2 steps: an analysis based on those questions on the previous page, and then step 3, a final paragraph where you apply what you've just done to your own work. Okay. It's also incredibly useful because you can see examples. So for instance, I'm having trouble getting this to turn off. One of those 3 presentations is this one here. And I don't think in any of our previous instruction sheets has it mentioned this application, nor have I mentioned it. And I'm familiar with it, so I'm a little bit disappointed that I couldn't remember it. But yeah, there's this presentation called Powtoon. And you won't be able to hear the audio, but let me just show what it looks like. Now, she has voiceover. So when you click on this link, you'll be able to hear her scripted voiceover. But if you're thinking, wow, that looks kind of cool, or like, how in the world did she create that? Well, she did it using Powtoon, okay, which is presentation software. But it's presentation software that doesn't look like PowerPoint or Keynotes or even Prezi, okay? It obviously uses this kind of cartoon style. Um, I haven't. I've played around with it on a very basic level, but I do know it's fairly intuitive, so it's not difficult to use. So any of you who like this style, any of you who are thinking, "Wow, that really looks snazzy," or if I use this, I won't run into problems doing what David's talking about just throwing words endlessly up on slides or creating generic PowerPoint presentations. This program will force you to not do that. Um, I do think that even though Powtoon can be a lot of fun to play with, it is easy to use, but I think it's easy to create a terrible Powtoon that was just created in like 10 minutes and one that has clear planning going into it. Okay. So these aren't just visuals, they're like visuals that are matching what she's saying, right? It allows you to bring in other images. Let me see if I can find an example of that. Right. So I don't know if I think that's part of Powtoon, that image there. But you can do things like this, right? So you're dragging in images. Same thing here. Yeah, Christopher, it's a pretty cool tool. So if you're all thinking that this is the style you like, watch this person's presentation. Again, you have three that you can choose from, and I forget which one it is, but it's one of these. Okay. Um, and I don't think any of them are made using PowerPoint. I wish there were like a PowerPoint example because so many students do use that. Um, okay, here, let me try to race through the rest of my presentation. Because one of the questions on that, the thought questions on the giving feedback assignments, so you'll watch one of those three student presentations, a past student presentation, and basically evaluate it, analyze it. One of the questions asks you to consider which appeal is it using most? Is it using ethos? Is it using pathos? Or is it using logos? Now, I meant to cover this in last week's lecture. Notice too, by the way, let me stop here and just point something out. Even here, like someone who's using PowerPoint generically would be tempted just to create a slide that has a title up top that says three rhetorical appeals, and then just a plain bullet list that says ethos, appeal to trust, pathos, appeal. But look how you can create a list, but do so visually, right? Like that's a more attractive slide. It grabs people's attention more than just putting these three terms in a generic bullet list. But yeah, so when you're watching whichever student presentation you choose to respond to, one of the questions I asked you to consider is it most using pathos, logos, or ethos? Pathos and logos are the two easiest to explain. Pathos is the appeal to emotion. So think of like those sad commercials that show dogs in cages, right? And it has really sad music. Like the commercial could quite literally include this sad looking dog here. Okay, that's an obvious appeal to emotion. Logos is the exact opposite. It is the appeal to logic, to reason. So think about, for example, the commercial that says 7 out of 10 dentists approve. So anything that relies on facts, that rely on data, that's logos. Ethos is the hardest to explain because it's the appeal to trust or credibility. Um, Sometimes ethos can be a specific move you make. So again, imagine a public service announcement about um, fire safety, and an actual fireman is briefly on screen, right? That would create more trust or credibility than, I don't know, uh, Beyonce suddenly appearing on the screen, right? As big as she is, why she's speaking about fire safety. But it's not just specific moves like that. Ethos is the overall sense of trust you get. For example, I've been to some Wikipedia articles that I can tell are fantastically written and researched. Like they're written by pros or written by experts. If it's about a specific moment in history, you get this sense that it's like history professors or PhD students in history or a number of them. And then you'll find a Wikipedia article that just is from the sentence level to the lack of information to all the brackets that say citation needed. You feel like it's written by who knows what. So one gives you a great sense of trust or credibility, one doesn't. Or even just random discussions online, right? Some person posts something that's incredibly thoughtful and well written, and someone else is a troll. One has more authority to the other. Ideally, all of your presentation videos, the pitch to a potential employer, should have you coming across as someone who is trustworthy, who is honest, who you finish the video, the 3 to 4 minute video, and you definitely walk away feeling like, wow, this is someone who knows his stuff or her stuff. This is someone who comes across as professional. This is someone, and even to the degree of like scripting your presentation versus not scripting it, right? The person who scripts what they have to say and puts effort into what they're going to say is automatically going to create a stronger sense of trust than someone who just clicks on the audio tool and starts winging it. Okay. So, just a quick definition of terms in case you're not sure what those mean in those thought questions for the fear feedback. The other big thing is just to finish your presentation. Over the next 2 days, I'll be giving you detailed feedback, and then you'll be polishing things up for the final version, which is due Sunday. If you need time beyond that, just let me know. I usually don't make a big deal if someone, especially if you get your feedback from me on Thursday. I have Thursday until 5 p.m. to get you feedback. But some people, that doesn't leave much turnaround because that's only Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you need an extra day, just give me a heads up because it's usually not a big deal. Okay. Um, yeah, there must be changes from your first draft to final draft in order to receive credit. This is not a big deal because I don't think I've ever seen a first draft that is like, you're done. You are absolutely done. You don't have to change a single word. There's not a single moment that is confusing or that could have been polished a little bit better. So don't let this scare you, okay? In fact, it's usually kind of the opposite, where the first draft is very much a rough draft. Um, so, but yeah, there's, I think, an obvious understanding that your first draft, and this is, by the way, did anybody realize that when working on the first draft, like this takes time? Like I can be a procrastinator, and I actually had to make my welcome video because we are asked as instructors to make welcome videos, and I waited until the last moment. Yeah, I had to pull an all nighter. Like that took me like 8 to 10 hours to create. Um, so yeah, it takes time. I mean, everything from scripting to finding that your script is maybe overloaded because it's going way over 5 minutes, making it more concise, having it match the images, having the images fit with whatever parts, like, yeah, finding the images, giving credit to those images. Like the whole thing is not something that can be banged out in an hour or two. James said it took him 2 all-nighters. Greg says spent about 18 hours. Yeah, that's right. And so, um, yeah, these aren't easy things. And the final result is something that's rather short and concise and tight. But yeah, you're getting a sneak peek at just how much effort goes into making like a really snazzy 3 minute video or presentation. Okay. Yeah, Nathan, some other people are having computer problems too. I think James was having some computer issues over the weekend. So James is giving out his number again. So people who literally need help, there's a person who's willing to help you. So jot that number down, send them a text. Okay. Most common issues that I see, monotone voice. Okay, so remember that vocal toolbox. Remember the emotional storytelling thing was supposed to be not just you talk about your favorite, coolest movie or favorite song, but it was really an exercise in trying out your vocal skills. I'm not, again, I think I'm an easy grader, so people don't lose like lots of points. It's because their voice isn't the greatest voice in the world. I don't think, oh, well, this person doesn't sound like a DJ, so I'm going to give this a B instead of an A. No, I mostly want to see scripted. The words that you have scripted come across clearly, right? If you can try to vary your voice, great. But yeah, my bigger concern is just winging it, like not scripting things, just okay. Blurry images due to low resolution. I never mentioned the Apple rule. So the Apple rule, because you're probably wondering what that means. The Apple rule means you have an image of an apple, and then up top there's like a title that says Apple. Or you say, I got my degree at Full Sail University, so there's an image of Full Sail, and then above that there's a title that says Full Sail. Okay, so it's this really obvious connecting image to text. And first of all, we're trying to get you to steer away from text or too much text, and the limited text you do use should be worthwhile. Okay, that you're putting the words on there for some sort of reason. Again, kind of this idea of the right visuals with the right text that frames those visuals so it connects to what you're saying in that moment in your voiceover. Your voiceover is the meat. Okay, that's the star. That's the content. Um, so yeah, and again, people really only run into this rule when they're opening up PowerPoint and creating generic slides. Music that has words, yeah, be careful. Okay, music that has words is going to automatically interfere with what you're saying, or is too loud, or is too distracting. So you pick something that has a heavy beat, or it's way too upbeat, and it's just interfering with what you have to say. Yeah, presentations that are too short or too long. I'll be willing to extend it to, it says 3 to 4 minutes. I'll go as long as 5 minutes if they're a really good 5 minutes, but longer than that, you are testing people's patience. Okay. Too short means that you don't have enough content. And those 3 sample student presentations that you have to watch for the feedback assignment, the 4.3 assignment, I mean, that also should give you some ideas. So anybody who's still struggling with content, like what am I supposed to say? What could I possibly cover? You have 3 examples. No, you can't just copy literally what they say, but watch those 3 presentations to give you an idea of the range of things that you could possibly cover. Okay. Uh, Dustin says, "Stay away from slang words." Yeah, actually, you know what? Because it doesn't say that this on here. Proofread, please, because you're using limited text, so obvious spelling errors or obvious use of slang or something like that will just stick out like a sore thumb. Like on my first slide, I started typing the word performance and it had 2 F's in it. If I didn't catch that, like that's just obvious. So yeah, be careful. Audience unclear. That's not a tremendous issue, but it is for people who still don't know what the assignment is about. So yeah, this isn't a presentation where you get to make it a presentation about whatever you want. You're pitching yourself to a potential employer. For some people, they actually come up with an exact company or employer. You don't have to do that, but yes, it has to be you're presenting yourself to someone who could potentially be interested in hiring you. I've bent the rules a little bit for some people who are, for example, pitching to investors who are essentially going to hire this person for his or her services. But there has to be that element there, okay? Um, that you're presenting yourself because someone's interested in working with you, hiring you, something like that. Credits, okay? So you have to include a list of credits to things that you've used, images, music. James recommends practicing your script to yourself in the mirror. In general, that's good advice, but I would ask why in the mirror? Because most people aren't going to be doing this live. Is there something about the mirror that still helps with even audio that's going to be strictly voice? Greg says, what about the music industry? It's kind of different. I don't know what that comment is directed toward. I mean, if you're talking about your audience, this assignment, it has to be pretty firm. I can't grade people who, like I had some people suggesting my presentation is going to be about my film idea or here's the album I'm going to make. It's like, no, 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 no. You have to pitch yourself to a potential employer. I can bend the rules somewhat as long as it's still a situation in which you're creating a presentation that is presenting you, who you are, what your skills are, what your background is, what you can bring to whomever. Okay, but it still has to be that audience. I mean, like I can tweak it a little bit, but essentially you're still all creating the same type of presentation. And if that means you have to adapt things so you imagine yourself more as an intern working in a recording studio, then you do it, even if that's not your dream, because I can't have 60 or 70 presentations that are all over the place. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, anything that we didn't go over as the class as a whole, or for the final presentation, that now is the time to answer it. If you're comfortable with what we've gone over, I thank you for being here. I think we've had pretty much the same group of people the entire month, so I appreciate that. Um, Sean says the critique, can it be about what they could have improved on? Yeah, absolutely. There's one of the thought questions ask you, uh, right? Like what was confusing? Um, but on the next page where it tells you to create a document that includes your overall analysis, yeah, you're going to be addressing those thought questions, but the thought questions include like what's working well, what could be improved. Absolutely focus on what should be improved. Okay. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else in the chat. For people who are good, you don't have to stick around. I'll stick around for a little bit to answer questions if people have them. Remember too that I can be reached through just a message on the FSO platform. Okay. So even though this is the last go-to session, it is not goodbye. I'm still going to be giving you feedback. I'll still be hearing from you for another week or so. Greg says, do we keep the links that are attached to the images we used? You can. Like I said, I mean, I've gotten rid of the PowerPoint, but if it includes that basic information, like the title of the image, um, okay, so I don't have the presentation up anymore, but I still have the image, I think. Well, here, like as long as you're doing, like if you grab something from Creative Commons, this is useful because if you click on it, it will take you right there. But yeah, if there's not a link that's like highlighted, I do think it's good form to give me the URL. Like, just make sure that I have a way to get back to the image, okay? Dustin says you can have a monotone voice for a presentation, but liven it up with jokes. Look at the YouTube video I posted on 3.2. Okay, I'll take a look at that because because I would be careful with both the monotone voice thing and jokes. Sometimes they work really well, but sometimes they don't work as well as people think. But I haven't watched your post, Dustin. I think somebody else entirely. In their planning document, I cautioned them about jokes the person planned to make. Not because I'm against humor, not because I'm against jokes, but sometimes they work really well. Sometimes they don't work as well as people think. And since this is a professional pitch to employers, that's even a bigger caution. Okay. Yeah, humor is a difficult thing to talk about. Like I don't know if it works until I see it. So Nino says, so triple checking, do we have to use non-copyright or is it just highly encouraged? Nino, why don't you run by like what images are so important to you that you can't find images? Like this isn't a class where I'm going to be grading you on the how awesome your images is. You have an Adobe stock account. Can I use those? I think so. What does that mean? I'm not familiar with Adobe stock accounts. So if it's images that you access through like a program, like that's fine. If you pay for Creative Cloud. Yeah, see, now I'm getting into areas that I'm less sure about. If you pay for Creative Cloud, I mean, I'm not familiar with some of these specific things you're talking about, but like, no, you can't say that because I'm a paid member of, oh gosh, what's a huge paid subscription service? Just because you're a paid member of something doesn't mean you can raid their website for images or something. Like it should be fairly clear. I mean, here's the thing, I wouldn't get so hung up on images. Like, let's say you're a film student. Like, as long as there's some sort of image that connects to what you're talking about, um, you should be fine. And maybe this is a discussion where you'll have to send me a message with the kind of images you're thinking of using. And I think it might be further confusing too, because one of the student examples, I think, does use some images that are iffy. So, I mean, listen, I cannot stop you from doing what you're going to do. But it's really about the bigger picture thing, right? Dustin says I used Upsplash for some images. It's free and it has the credits, the artist list as well. It's a little more focused than Google Images. Okay, so there's Unsplash. So Dustin mentioned something called Unsplash, so maybe check that out. Maylee says a portion of the images she used were iffy. Okay, well, first of all, decide how iffy. Or do you mean iffy in terms of whether they were allowable or not? If the simple workaround is to go to various creative, I feature just two, like Flickr, Creative Commons, and then the official creativecommons.org. There are other Creative Commons type bank of images. So if you cast your net wide enough, you should be able to find images that work, right? So that one that I dragged in earlier, this one here, like imagine that I'm a music student, right? Or I'm planning to go into the music business. Maybe I'm not super attracted to the image because, wow, it's an image of a woman and she's just a vocalist. I'm a guitarist for a band, but I could still use this image to communicate the idea of music. Okay. Greg says, what makes them not usable? What makes them not usable is when it literally, you cannot discover that you've been given permission to use them. Okay. So, for example, you go to a website like ESPN or Disney or right, and because images, you can pretty much right click on just about any image and have the option to save it. Um, by going to various Creative Commons type sites, you know those images are permitted, right? And so, like I said, I mean, here's an image that works perfectly well for a slide. It's got room for me to add wording, and it's allowable. So, you can search through Flickr. So if your background is film, or actually movies might be better. Okay. And yeah, the challenge is finding an image that works. Okay. Obviously, I mean, things like this are confusing. What happens when I click on this? I might not be in the Creative Commons area anymore. Yeah, like this is all rights reserved. So, how did I get away from the Creative Commons part of Flickr? Okay, but here Flickr explains like the attribution licenses. Let's see, what happens if I do see more? Okay, you can search within these fields. Okay, so I guess if you use this general one, it's going to result in copyrighted images. Here, let me try movies. Okay, but it's still coming up with some weird results. Actually, this one is allowable. It says some rights reserved. Okay, so yeah, Greg, if you're ever doubtful, just like send me things that you're unsure. Yeah, anybody who needs to go, you can go. Um, but we're either looking for like the little symbol that makes it clear, like here, if you're at all in doubt, it explains by clicking on it. You're free to share, adapt under the following terms that you give credit, um, or you look for some rights reserved. If it's all rights reserved, then that's something you should stay away from. If you're using the Creative Commons bank within Flickr, so not this guy up here, it should result in images that are allowable. But then, yeah, the next choice is finding something that works, because most of these, like you're thinking, well, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. Even include some video, because Creative Commons videos can be included. But like eventually, you can find something, and sometimes you have to vary your search. So, for example, movie camera. or movie director, right? Vary your search terms to try to trigger what you're looking for. And if you're striking out in one bank of images, go to another. Um, Last week I mentioned comp fight. Oh, by the way, you can also Google like 5 classic presentation fonts or the 10 best fonts you can use for your presentation. Okay, so if you're unsure what sorts of fonts to use, comp fight. Okay, that was another one. Okay, so if we use movie, okay, and we should click on Creative Commons to eliminate all the things that are commercial. And then we just go through it. Now it looks like the type of the word camera, get some just generic images of camera. Yeah, things that are above and below the dotted lines are things that would work well, like a classic film type camera. Uh, but again, if you scroll enough, you can eventually, yes, Comfy. Well, it's free if you remember to click on Creative Commons. Okay. And you have to be careful because anything above or below these dotted lines are images you have to pay for. That's why they look so nice and they're always on target. Um, how about cinema? Okay. So sometimes, like that looks like a screen capture from a movie. But it is some rights reserved. But I don't recognize what movie that's from. I'm trying to see if I can eventually find a decent image. Uh, Ooh, this one. Okay, some rights reserved. And yeah, it looks like it's a photo cam, but who cares? Like it's so zeroed in on the lens that like you might have word space to put words here, and it communicates the idea of film or shooting. Okay, so yeah, if you search enough, you can find images that are perfectly allowable. Dustin says, "Is there a way to add downloaded fonts to iMovie?" I don't know. Um, it's been a while since I used iMovie. I used it to make that welcome video. I remember that when you do add like intertitles or even text to an image, you do have some font selection. I don't know if there's a way to add font. That's where Google will be your friend. Like do a search for these more advanced topics. Um, Here's an image that might work to communicate the idea of film. Okay, so vary your search terms. So if movie is striking out, you try film. If film is striking out, you try cinema, and just see what you ultimately come back with. What is that? I don't know what that is. At first, I thought it was the Millennium Falcon. Yes, Greg. Some rights reserved images are okay, or anything found through CreativeCommons.org that gives you. Actually, everything filed through CreativeCommons.org is allowable. Okay, there are different levels, but they're all. That's a super safe site. Flickr, it looks like you have to make sure that you're searching under their Creative Commons function. Okay, but it too, it's a fisheye lens shot of a building from low angle. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, so right, or sometimes there are cool images, but you just don't know what to do with them. Like this has lots of space to enter something. Like this would work well, maybe for you're trying to communicate the idea of like I don't know, dreaming ahead or dreaming of the future, right? Like something about that image communicates that. So don't rule out photos or images that are allowable that you can connect to something that you're saying. Um, but yeah, um, students who've taken this class with me multiple times, they find images. Okay, here's an attractive image. It's just not horizontal. Not the most beautiful image, but in a pinch, there's certainly room to add text. Oh, did I? What was Nino's question? I've been uploading my presentation as a video. Do you want me to send my PowerPoint and script with the final as well? I just need to see the if you are saying that you created it in PowerPoint but you finished it off as a video, I just need to see the video. I mean, yes, if it doesn't have like a credits thing in at the end as a video, then you'll need to send me that separately. But it's, I think, most ideal to create space for it as like an end credit thing or a final slide that lists the credits. But yeah, I don't need to see the individual parts. It actually works well because I'm not going to see grammar errors, a missing comma, uh, a fragment, a comma splice, because when you speak, you just don't see or hear those. You don't see those things. So yeah, I just need to see the finished product. Okay, any other questions before I shut things down and get to processing this video? Again, you can ask me questions over FSO. Um, okay, it looks like people don't have any other questions. So unless someone screams out wait or stop, I think I will shut things down. Take some time to process these videos and get it uploaded for all the people who are going to watch this on their own time. So thanks everyone. Okay, take care. Thanks for being awesome this month. I am stopping the recording now.